I'm taking you to not one, not two, but three great Colorado Railroad destinations on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure to subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. Well, recently, my family and I traveled to Colorado specifically to visit some railroad and model railroad destinations. And today, I'm going to take you there with me and allow you to experience some of what we saw at those attractions. Specifically, we're going to be visiting the Colorado Model Railroad Museum and talking to curator Michelle Kempema, who many of you know from various YouTube channels and podcasts. We're also going to be riding the Georgetown Loop Railroad and learning a little bit about its history, and going to the Colorado Railroad Museum and seeing some prototype equipment that preserves the history of railroading in Colorado. So let's head on out west and we'll check all of these out. With 13,000 unique items in inventory and one-day shipping, Midwest Model Railroad is your one-stop model railroad shop. Check them out at midwestmodelrr.com. Link in the description. Well, our first stop in Colorado was in Greely at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. And I'm here with Michelle Kempema, who is the curator of the museum here and who I know many of you have gotten to know through her appearances on a number of YouTube channels as well as podcasts and interviews. Been on TSG Multimedia a lot, a regular now there.
Yeah, a regular talk show.
And so I know many of you have heard from her, but I'm going to have Michelle just talk to us a little bit about the museum while you see some of the sites and the trains that are running here today. Michelle, tell us a little bit about the museum and what is the attraction of this museum and this place for model railroaders?
Yeah, why do people come see this?
Exactly.
Well, for one thing, our layout is 5,500 square feet of model layout. It is truly an immersive world. It's designed with wide aisles and low plexiglass so that you are part of the layout when you're in there. And so we actually feature many kinds of trains and they have jobs. So there's lots going on our layout. It's very much alive. And we dispatch it. So it's really alive. It's a very prototypical layout.
And you run this layout in a number of different modes. Like now today is for the public, and so the trains are automated today, running by computer control.
Yeah, today we don't have enough volunteers to run a full dispatch. So what we do is we have an actual computer program that will run up to 9 trains, have them pass each other, and then park them back in our staging yard at the end of the day. It's a pretty amazing program that was written by one of our volunteers. But you also have some very serious prototypical operations that go on here as well. We do, yes. So Fridays and Saturdays and some Sundays, we actually dispatch this railroad, meaning there is a dispatcher in our dispatcher's office, and our volunteers have a headset on, and they have their controller, and they're actually controlling their trains with clearance from the dispatchers. So it's a lot going on. It's very much alive. I noticed, as an outsider coming in for the first time, I've been to a lot of model railroad museums, and they tend to be more for the non-model railroader. Oh, look at the toy trains going in circles. Right. This is a model railroad that has very high standards with regard to the modeling, the trains themselves, the scenery. It's fully signaled. Model railroaders absolutely will love this layout in this museum. So if you're a model railroader and you're anywhere near Greeley, Colorado, this is an absolute must-see, I will say. Now, one more thing. Tell us about some of the things you have here specifically for kids. Yeah. So we had to balance prototypical model railroading, the volunteer experience with our public, their experience. So we have all sorts of things for kids. We have Lego layouts. We have an N-scale T-track where the kids in our youth programs actually make their own T-track and can bring it in and run it anytime. And that's really, really cool. And we have quite a few things for kids. We have an I Spy game that they really like. We have dinosaurs actually hidden, not prototypical, but we have dinosaurs hidden all over the place, and they hunt for them. And you do some special, unusual things from time to time. I know recently you took one of my other loves and incorporated it. You had a Star Wars Day here. Yes, we do. We tend to do events and combine things and just really have fun. We have a rule here that you have to have fun when you're in this building. And I think if you can't have fun here, you may have a hard time having fun anywhere. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing a little with us today. Really had a great time here at the museum. And again, I'm going to highly recommend anybody coming to the area at all, be sure and check out the Colorado Model Railroad Museum in Greeley, Colorado.
The second railroad destination on our trip is the Georgetown Loop Railroad, and we've just boarded and just left the station. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the Georgetown Loop as I show you some of the video and some of the photos from today. We're also going to be taking a tour of the Lebanon Mine, and I'll share with you a little bit of that information and some of those shots as well. Completed in 1884, the Georgetown Loop was originally part of Jay Gould's Colorado Central Railroad. The line carried goods into the mountains and ore from mines out. And among these was the historic Lebanon Mine, a silver mine that also produced lead, copper, and other minerals in the Georgetown and Silver Plume area. But the real claim to fame for the Georgetown Loop was as a tourist destination. It was the first railroad line into the mountains from Denver. Gould wanted to extend the line to Leadville to capitalize on the silver bloom there, but natural obstacles slowed his progress, and when the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad beat him to Leadville, he lost interest, so the line permanently terminated just beyond the town of Silver Plume. The line discontinued service in 1938, but in 1984 it resumed operations as an excursion railroad with the completion of the replica bridge over Devil's Gate just in time for the railroad's 100th anniversary. Today, the 4.5-mile route winds through the mountains from Georgetown to Silver Plume, climbing 640 feet in elevation via a grand loop from which the line gets its name and a series of switchbacks through the woods. The railroad is 3-foot narrow gauge. Our train was pulled by locomotive number 40, a Baldwin 280 built in 1920. It's one of 3 operational steam locomotives owned and operated by the railroad today. At Silver Plume, we had a 15-minute stop while the crew filled the locomotive with water and ran around to pull the train back down the hill in reverse. On the return trip, we stopped for a tour of the Lebanon Mine. We panned for gold and took a guided tour 1,000 feet into the mine shaft under the hill. Located 45 miles west of Denver, Colorado, along Interstate 70, the Georgetown Loop is a great railroad destination for the whole family. Well, our third and final rail destination here in Colorado is the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden. You see the train behind me. We're going to ride it in just a few minutes, and there are tons of great outdoor exhibits of locomotives and rolling stock and indoor HO scale train layout, and we're going to take it all in. I'm going to share it with you right now. The Colorado Railroad Museum was opened in 1959 as a means to preserve the tangible history of Colorado's railroad era, especially that of its narrow-gauge mountain railroads. Located in Golden, Colorado, just outside of Denver, the museum is home to numerous pieces of rolling stock, steam and diesel locomotives, an HO-scale model railroad, a garden railroad, and many railroad artifacts. The museum has 3 operating steam locomotives, including number 20, which was loaded up on a trailer for a trip to Cripple Creek, its original home, and on to a guest appearance on the Cumbries and Toltec. The museum also operates a GE 44-tonner, number 4, which was pulling the excursion train around the loop the day that I visited. Some of the more notable equipment in the museum's collection include 3 Rio Grande Southern Geese motor cars, numbers 2, 6, and 7. I also particularly enjoyed seeing the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 484, number 5629, the Standard Oil 040 switcher, number 1, and the Incline Cog Steamer, number 1 from the Manitou and Pikes Peak Railway. The Roundhouse has a hand-operated turntable for turning equipment, and they give kids the opportunity to experience pushing the turntable around the pit. The HO Scale Railroad is a nice model, although it is behind full plexiglass panels that make it a bit hard to access and even harder to photograph or video. The Garden Railroad, on the other hand, is a delight with numerous scenes, lots of trains, and a lot of real shrubs and flowers to set it off. I want to say a special thank you to Jeff Taylor, the curator of equipment and rolling stock at the museum. Jeff met me almost as I pulled in the parking lot and recognized me from the channel. Being familiar with the channel, he was extremely welcoming and gave my son and I a great behind-the-scenes tour of the Roundhouse and a rundown of current projects of the museum. Thank you, Jeff. If you're in the Denver area, the Colorado Railroad Museum is a great stop. In fact, it would be really easy to hit the Georgetown Loop and this museum in the same day, as you can complete the tours of either in 2 to 3 hours or so, and they sit just 40 minutes apart. Well, I must say we had a great time and a lot of fun on this particular vacation visiting these destinations, as well as some other family-oriented things that we did together. But I must say that I have to highly recommend all 3 of these destinations. I know that you as model railroaders, as rail fans, will really enjoy each one. So if you get an opportunity to get to that central Colorado region, be sure and go check them out. Well, I don't know about you, but I personally am fascinated by Colorado railroad history, especially mountain railroading, the narrow gauge lines that ran to the logging camps and the mines throughout the state. I just find it all very fascinating, and of course I love the scenery of the Rocky Mountains in the Colorado. If that is of interest to you, then you're going to want to check out my Amazon pick of the week in the description down below. And while you're there, check out my Micromark promo code that'll save you 10% at micromark.com as well. Well, if you'd like to see some more model railroad content right now, check out the links on your screen. And be sure and join me each Tuesday as I bring you even more great model railroad videos. And I look forward to seeing you then. 10, Lizzie?